And here we go. W4RJG for the Halifax County VA Amateur Radio Monday night learning sessions. We are also on Zoom. You should have emails or on Facebook. This is announced. For those who do not have Facebook, you can send me an email at w4rjg@arrl.net, and I will get you on those postings that automatically come out to announce things like this session. So if you are on Zoom, you can join me and then you'll see the slides that I'll be referring to tonight. In this sequence of Monday nights, this is going to be about tonight Echolink because Echolink is now on this repeater. So whether this fits into the normal scheduling that I like to do or not, it doesn't matter because I'm going to make it about Echolink tonight. So I have slides that I'll be referring to. I'll be trying to read from them a little bit for those who can only listen. But of course, the intent is to get this as something up onto the YouTube channel, mine, and I'll post it up on Facebook and send it out to the whole email group so you can go find it. So Charles, NM4V, has attached Echolink to this repeater. It works. He did it through his phone. I did it through mine. He talked to me on my radio. When I tested it out on my phone, I spoke to Ray, KO4PF. So we know it works. So we're going to do a run through about what Echolink is and what you can do with it. So what is Echolink? Number one, it's simple. It's easy to do. When it first came out back in 2003, I started using it and made use of it. I'll tell you about that at the end of this whole little session here. KO4PF says that he had an Echolink connection. It can be done. You don't have to be super technical. Just know how to follow instructions. So, what is Echolink? It's a method for digitally linking transceivers or repeaters regardless of location. It's a method for accessing remote transceivers, kind of like a remote control, but not. So that's its purpose from a ham radio perspective. A way to go from one node to another, and it's under the heading of VoIP, voice over the internet. Break, my voice is a little off, excuse me. And it's a way to connect computers, amateur radio repeaters, therefore operators. It's got a couple of different little features to it, which may be in these slides. And if they are, I'll mention it. If I can remember for the ones not in the slides, I'll mention that too. It has basically three different ways that you can connect. You can use a direct user where we can go through Echolink. So Charles and I can go to each other directly if we wanted to without going through the repeater. However, with that comes a caveat. They will only accept licensed amateur radio operators to utilize the service, like OneLink, which I've mentioned, which is spam free because it limits who can get access to it. The same thing with Echolink. The entire ham radio community can get access to it. However, only the ham radio community can get access to it, which is a good thing. So you can go direct, computer to computer, and computer includes your phone because your phone in this case is a computer. It's either the Apple iOS operating system, or if you have everybody else, it's the Android, which is based on Linux operating system. You can also come through a repeater, which is what Charles has made available for us, or you can create a simplex link, which is something I'm thinking about doing because I have an Echolink box as well. You can get it on your phone. You can have a direct connection, and you don't need super high-speed internet connectivity. It is only voice, and you just use whatever the communication facilities are for your computer. If you only have a desktop, you will need to get for yourself some kind of a microphone setup and a speaker setup. And one of the quickest ways is an El Cheapo headset with a boom mic. And there you go. You can also create a conference, which is linking other repeaters, or you can have a widespread connectivity. And the most famous one of that is the WX repeater system for Skywarn for hurricane season. One of the things it has here on the slide, it's kind of like a big party line for those of us who know what that is. Or it's kind of like everybody clicking in onto a Zoom session for those who know how to run Zoom. There are a couple of ways that you can explain it, but it's a way to connect other rooms. So if you have a house and there's a separate room in the house, but there is a common way for everybody to hear each other through some sort of link speaker and microphone setup throughout all the rooms. The cool thing is that with Echolink, only one person's talking at a time, and it makes sure there's no doubling or anything else. You will get locked out if you try and transmit. Then there's the repeater setup, like the NM4V. Through a little device, really not complicated, it has the audio streamed over the internet. It has a little signaling so that when on your device, such as on the phone, you push the transmit little button device, however that is set up featured on your particular computer or on your microphone on your radio, it creates a PTT, and so the repeater knows to go into a transmit mode. Echolink makes sure that only one person is speaking at a time, as mentioned. There's a cute little picture, and you can go to echolink.com and you'll see this cute little picture, and it shows you real simply the various ways that people can connect. You have two mobile units and they go into a repeater, and then that goes into a computer, and then the computers link over the internet. And so it's repeater to repeater, but you yourself are not directly connecting to the other repeater. It goes through the internet through the Echolink system. Now, there are some people who will tell you, and they are absolutely correct, this is not pure amateur radio, and it's not. However, it is making use of technology, and amateur radio has always been at the forefront. As a matter of fact, if I remember an article correctly, it was two ham radio operators. They weren't doing a for ham radio per se, but they were amateur radio operators. They created FM, frequency modulation, that wonderful sounding mode that we use here on repeaters on higher bands when we just want to do local talking. Your broadcast radio, where they were able to come up with FM stereo, so you could be driving around and in a nice sound system in a car, you're hearing this beautiful sound. Or if it's some of the more modern music, maybe not so nice sound, but you're hearing it in stereo anyway. So it creates it to be an awesome experience. You can go radio to radio, radio to somebody else's phone. You have some options. And then you have the simplest link, and that's basically where just one person out of their local area will do that. I have not spoken to anybody who has that. It's something I'm probably going to be wanting to do myself to make that available. I will inform all of you exactly how that all works, because the slides here is more how somebody else already has it set up, but they don't tell you how to set it up. So that'll be for a future item. It's very easy to set up. You download the software, we'll fill out certain information. Part of it's going to be after you get it up and you put in your call sign, you have to send them proof of that you are a licensed operator, a currently licensed operator. Then they'll let you know that it's all done. And then you've got your call sign. You're up and running. Now, this is the only tricky part coming up. It's really not that hard. And for anybody who needs any help, I will be able to walk you through it. For those who know what TCP ports are, there's also another part of the internet connecting at that level called UDP. They both do the same thing in essence. It's a targeted flow, like a lane on a highway, and you're going to go back and forth only on that lane. My Nortons today, when I set it up on my laptop, he acknowledged the outgoing ports, but he did not have preset the incoming ports, so I had to turn them on. I've been doing this, like I said, since 2003, so I knew what to look for, how to get it set up. It has a little firewall test, so you know that you do need to set it up, and ta-da. It's not hard to do once you know how, and again, I'll help you do that if you need it. What we should have done so far, if you're setting this up, you've installed the software, you got microphone and speakers, which if you're using a cell phone, you've got it. If you have a laptop, that's already built in. You have an internet connection required, and you've been validated on Echolink. So now what do? You start it up, you log in, you set up your basic settings. You could pretty much go with the default ones. You're not a sysop. If you know, because you're just a regular user. They do have a test feature called Echo Test. And this way you can make sure that you're going out and that you can receive an incoming signal, which is pretty neat to have, so you don't have to wonder. The screen is based on Windows, very early Windows. It's not the fanciest graphics, but you're really not there to run a program for the graphics. It's just basic, simple to create a connection. And it does it nicely, has searching features, has various groupings to find other repeaters where the other repeaters are so you can find them. If you're transmitting, how is it going? How strong the signal is? The audio is, I should say, because you're not doing RF at that point. Coming in, runs on Windows, I believe Linux as well, probably by this time, Apple computers. Don't know. If you want, I can go find that out. Get yourself all set up, who you are, what your sound card items are when you need to do so. That, of course, would be for if you go to run Echolink and you're doing a sysop where you're going to be controlling it to your radio, standard kind of sound card stuff for that, pretty much set to go for your average user. There's going to be YouTube videos out there that can show you how it actually looks, but there's a search. So in the search, oh, they do have a feature called CQ, and people, I haven't used it since that feature's been put in, but people can just go popping in. A lot of people used to do it a lot. I don't know how often it happens these days. They'll just come in onto your Echolink because you're there, you're up and running, you're logged in, and they'll say hi. They're willing to talk to you. There is a little hand signal graphic up there, and everything is also there in drop down menu items. Lock out your Echolink station so people just can't come in and say hi to you. Kind of like hanging up the phone versus having the phone off the hook and people can just start talking. So, not exactly the best way, but I hope you got the idea. So you have to do adjusting of audio, microphone being the most sensitive. When I was on it earlier today on my phone, Ray let me know that I was a little too loud, so I lowered the microphone a little bit. So be sensitive to, you're not operating a radio per se, and even if you are, because it's going through Echolink and then other computer systems, it may not work the same way as you would through a repeater. So people may ask you to give more or less sound coming through from your microphone setup. When I do set up this on YouTube, there will be a link for the slides I have because they do have some other things. There's a NASA channel, an Ireland conference, but they mention it as a general European open conference for like chewing, chatting away, listing the hardware that you need. Not that much really for just going to be an average user. Because of how it worked, they will list in the slides other things that we don't use anymore, like RS-232. Comport, of course, is the best. It has a way through these slides is talking about setting up for as a sysop, but I will also make sure that if it gets too complicated, that there'll be a set of slides how to set it up just as a user. It's not hard, folks. Some of the big uses of it, when hurricanes hit, the whole Skywarn community will get onto the weather. Will be connecting to everybody and anybody, and pretty much everybody's on a listen only. They only want, I don't know, I forget how they assign who will be able to do speaking, because you don't want everybody just jumping in saying, yeah, winds are getting big here, because people will do that. But they have that one. There's one or two other national events. It will be a whole bunch of nodes. They'll be all interconnected. One that was happening for a while, which was very important to us in the New York area. They ran for a few years the 9/11 memorial time, just getting a whole bunch of people connected, and they have a little bit of a solemn moment at a particular time, which is really cool. But it was done at night, not during the day, because a lot of people were working. So there was no moment of silence when the first tower fell. There's no moment of silence when the second tower fell. But here is another use that it can be used for. I used to be one of the control operators for a national traffic system net that covered all of New Jersey except for the very most northern counties. Otherwise, we had 20 repeaters that were all linked together, which made it interesting all by itself. You always have to wait, as you can imagine, all the clicking of repeaters going down the line, being able to speak. And so it was a very slow process, and we had at times up to 40 people checking in. So check-in could take up to a half an hour because there were people who did things, and we would have Echolink check-ins. So there would be a period of time. Now, everybody who wants to check in, it'd be 5-7 minutes of people checking in. And then we would have everybody only Echolink check-ins to give them a chance to come in. And then there was another group that I forget what that was, maybe ILRP, but there was another group that would also, we would segregate out to say, only you folks. Mobiles. Mobile units were also ones that were tougher to try and get in because they're concentrating on driving. So anybody who was mobile who hadn't had a chance, we make sure they got in. But Echolink was really cool because people could call in from anywhere. So people who used to be active in the net were now living in Florida. They would check in, and if there was a piece of traffic that was related to them in that area, they would take it. And I even ran a net once or twice on Echolink from my workplace because I'd have to work late that night. But at 10 o'clock at night, I would be available because whatever I was there for was pretty much done. And I would run the net by Echolink. That's how good it can work. The other cool thing that had happened in my personal experience to show you how much fun you can have with Echolink, I had my FT817, which is a portable mobile radio, and I would take it to and from work. I was on the bus for at least 2 hours one way, so I always had a kind of a very sizable on wheels travel bag. So I bring my FT817. It would run off of AA batteries. And for a little while I was running along the New Jersey Turnpike close to Manhattan, there is a repeater on 30 Rockefeller Center, the same building that the show 30 Rock is supposedly from. And there is a really nice 2 meter repeater up there. And I would talk quietly with earphones for the speaker. And on my way into work or on my way home, we would catch a guy who was sitting at his either breakfast table or dinner table, the opposite time from us, in Sydney, Australia. And he was on his HT into his local repeater that he had. I forget how it gets done right now, but he had the repeater go and link up with that 30 Rock repeater. And so at times I would catch him and we'd have this nice little chat. He would be sitting there eating his food, and I would be sitting there comfortably on this nice bus going to and from work. That's some of the beauty of what Echolink can do. So there you have it. A little bit of an intro of what we can do with Echolink, the kind of things that you can do with it, not so much limitations that I mentioned. It can only go to Echolink enabled devices, repeaters, or other users, like someone who has Echolink can contact me directly. And it has all the privacy. Nobody else can jump in between. It's a peer-to-peer, point-to-point communication at that point in time. The only time it gets bigger than P2P is when you go into a repeater, and then, like anything with a repeater, who's ever there. For when operators are talking to each other directly, general ham radio rules are followed. They'll be announcing themselves with their name and their call sign, and they will end the conversation with their call sign. And if you go on long enough, just about every 10 minutes or so, we'll just spit out our little call sign, just to always stay in a good habit of doing so. And then this way, if you're on Echolink on a repeater, you never fail to stay within FCC rules and regulations, because if you are going from your phone or your PC into a repeater, you're going out over the air, and therefore you have to follow all the rules. They don't care what the access point is into a repeater. They just care you're going out over the radio waves on amateur radio frequencies. So all the rules apply at that time. Give it a try. If you have any trouble with it, trying to get the client set up, let me know, whether it's on a PC, which is one program, or on your phone, which is a similar but different program. Get your ID set up within WinLink, and especially if you're on a home computer system with a router that's there, I will help you get past that. Or if you have firewall software for those ports to get through, I can help you with that. So that wraps it up.